First of all, thanks everybody for joining us today for our webinar. My name is Brad Vorbeck. I'm with Turnkey Technologies, and we've also got Brian Trethaway from Prophix with us. Just wanted to give a quick little intro about Turnkey for anyone who's not familiar, and then I'll go ahead and hand it off to Brian, who's going to be taking us through the benefits of Prophix and corporate performance management software, and how you can reimagine your financial processes with automation. Turnkey is a business solutions provider based in St. Louis, Missouri. We're primarily focused on enterprise planning and customer engagement software, as well as Office 365, Power BI, and related cloud hosting services. We partner with Prophix to provide a purpose-built reporting solution that consolidates your data and your financial processes into one place rather than building your reports out of spreadsheets from disparate data sources. And we find that Prophix software works exceptionally well with the Microsoft technologies that our customers use, and so they are one of our premium solution partners. And if you have any questions during the webinar, please feel free to ask them via your GoToWebinar panel, and we'll get them answered at the end during a Q&A session. And also, this webinar is going to be recorded, so if you'd like to watch it afterwards, it will be on our website and on our YouTube channel in about 3 to 5 business days. And also, finally, for anybody who is attending the full duration of the webinar, Prophix will be sending a $10 Starbucks e-gift card as a special thank you, so please keep an eye out for that in your inbox. And with that said, that wraps up my little bit, and I will go ahead and hand it off to Brian.
Thank you very much, Brad. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Prophix demonstration. My name is Brian Trethaway, and I am a solutions engineer for Prophix, and I'll be showing you some high-level information of both corporate performance management as well as Prophix. And like Brad said, if at any time you have a question, please type it in the GoToMeeting panel on the right-hand side of your screen. That's usually where it shows up. And if I can't answer it right then and there, love to have them for the Q&A session at the end. So who is Prophix? We are a 31-year-old company, and we were founded by a gentleman who was in finance, and there was no software out there at the time to take care of the needs that he wanted and what he was looking to do to automate finance. And so he started his own company and started building Prophix. We are headquartered in Toronto, Canada, and we have other locations in the UK, US, South America, Denmark, Germany. We've got about 3,000 customers and about 100 countries across the globe. And all we work on is corporate performance management. That is all we do. We get excellent write-ups, Gartner, Howard Dresner. If you need to look up those, there's a lot more on the bottom of the slide here, which you can have for your records. One of the nice ones is the Dresner report, and he independently goes out to our customers and then talks to them and forms his reports based on that. And again, as Brad also mentioned, we are partnered with Turnkey, and we do a lot of good business together. So, first and foremost, Prophix, we're a single unified solution. Everything you see in the wheel on the left there, consolidations, automation, reporting, budgeting, analytics, we do all of that. It all comes in one solution. There are no modules. From your first license, you get every little bit of Prophix that there is. This is owned by finance. You do not need to rely on IT for generating reports or coming up with answers. We need IT at the beginning when we hook up to your ERP system, but after that, this is totally run by finance. You know, we have direct integration to, I think we're pretty close to 300 different ERP systems right now, which when we load our data into Prophix, we load that at the trial balance level, but our integration with the ERP system allows us to drill back and see transaction level detail. And I'll be showing you that here in a little bit. We're also automated. We have workflow, and what that does is it takes repetitive tasks and that we let the machine do it, and we put time back into finance hands. That gives you more time for analysis, less time building, generating, distributing reports, be it for forecast, budget, or month end. A lot of environments look like this. You know, we've got these different systems and we pull everything into Excel. What tends to happen is Excel gets larger. You have to worry about row shifts. You have to worry about overwrites on formulas, references, and you know, it gets to be large and out of hand. And what happens over time is we start adding different systems into the mix. My automation does not seem to be automating today. So we add other things into the mix. You know, we get new additional data sources and we start jamming those into our Excel spreadsheets, which makes them more and more complex. And then we've got more and more people who actually need the data that we gather to make decisions or to justify directions. And so what happens is things just start breaking, and it makes Excel very difficult to use in the long run. Well, we have a different solution to that. And what we do is we take your ERP systems and we have them automatically pulled into Prophix. So we'll take your CRM, your payroll, your Dynamics, your GP. We'll automatically pull that data into Prophix, and we will pull it into the models that you need straight away. So if we're looking at your month to date and your actuals, you know, you come into the morning and you've automated the process and you can see exactly what's happened, you know, over the night as we pull data in. Then once these models are built in Prophix, we can distribute this data in a lot of different ways. You know, we can put the reports up on SharePoint. You can consume them with any of the Office products, of course, on your laptop or your tower. And, you know, we have reports and wizards and dashboards that you can look at and look at the data. But the nice thing about this is because of the holistic system, we can then drill back to your original data to see transactions. Makes life a lot more, as a finance analyst, it makes it a lot easier to be able to quickly drill back, see what the transactions are, and look at that and answer a question. It made me look a lot more credible when we adopted this. Okay, I'm going to go in. Real quickly, I want to talk about how I came to be at Prophix and my credentials. Then we're going to start out with visual reporting, you know, looking at a dashboard and how that can get you good information and how we can automate your consumption of that information. Then we're going to go into created automated boardroom quality reports. I also want to talk about the security and the maintenance around dealing with these reports. This is more like a month-end report or, you know, something you would do after a forecast. It applies for sending out reports for budgeting, but, you know, that's more of a longer-term process. And then I'm going to go into budgeting, how we can automate and how we can update budgets and create, you know, a very specific, unique, and detailed budget for your business. So prior to coming to Prophix, I was a customer for 4.5 years. I was an FP&A analyst for a $2.1 billion segment of a global manufacturing firm. You can see our product on the right-hand side there. I used to work for Genie Industries in Redmond, Washington. In doing that, because we had a global footprint, I used to bring data in from 6 different ERP systems. We had 10 different charts of accounts across the globe and 9 functional currencies. We used to bring that in, map it, and convert it into USD because this is where our corporate offices were. Thanks to our tax lawyers, I had to budget report and monthly report on 26 legal entities across the globe. So that was quite a process. When I started with Prophix, we had about 30 users, and by the time I left, we had 96. Now, a good chunk of those were reporting users. All they got were reports, and the rest were everything from department heads to who just wanted to go in and look at data to I had a very core group of advanced users that helped me build new models, and a couple different admins for different aspects of our business. And when I left, we had 26 working models. Sometimes I'll use the term cubes. We're built on SQL Server OLAP cube technology. A model can be multiple cubes. Sometimes I switch back and forth, but please note that that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a business model, an aspect of your business that we are modeling in Prophix so that we can track it, measure it, and improve on it. You're going to pop over here. And one of the nice things about Prophix is any current device, any place, any time that you have web connectivity, you can access your data in Prophix. Welcome to Prophix 12. As we said earlier, we start on a dashboard. This is our home page and our launching screen for everything that we do inside Prophix. Now, as we're going through and talking about dashboards, notice that the cursor turns into a finger when we go over one of these business intelligent graphics or visual graphics. Whenever that changes, you can see we can actually interact with the graphic directly and show our data either at a lower level, or we can actually drill up and show our data at a higher level. So sometimes visually we can answer our questions just by looking and drilling around in our graphics. Top right is my tasks. I'm going to come back to that when we talk about the automation of a budget. So whatever workflow automation we have in Prophix, my task is it's each individual person's piece of that. So I'll get to that in a little bit more detail. And I'm going to give us a little more real estate here so we can see a little bit more. There we go. So on the left, pie chart, again, as I was saying, we can drill up, so I can go up to a region level, and then I can choose a different region and look at the top customers in that region. So very flexible, very easy to look at your data. The purple on the top here, or we call them badges, this can be any KPI or measurement that you wish to see for your company. So whatever your department needs to see, whatever your location needs to see, we can have that right on top so they get their measurements and KPIs right at the beginning of the day. My announcements, I found this to be useful during the large budget cycles. So it'll cycle through and show you, different milestones or when something was due for corporate. I found it handy for that. And one of the things on dashboards is you can have one dashboard for your entire company. You can have a dashboard for any of your geographic locations, divisions, departments, locations. You can assign a dashboard to anybody, based on any of those criteria. So, if you have one for the sales department, maybe instead of a pie chart over here, we would actually show the sales funnel and the different levels of a sales cycle that comes from a CRM. For marketing, you'd see, maybe how many attendees have signed up for your user conference to date versus your goal of what you would like to see join your user conference. Now, my favorites allows you to individualize your dashboard. So anything that you work on a regular basis, you can access from my favorites. Just gives you a quick way to get to work straight from your dashboard. Couple other BI graphics on the bottom left there, fill charts, speedos, column charts. Bottom right, we have a department operating expense. And we can see there's a negative variance here for marketing. And as we drill in a little bit more, we can see that product marketing has the lion's share of that. But we don't really have the details. Visuals are great for high-level analysis, but sometimes we want to see the numbers. We want to see more details. Well, we can go one level deeper. I can link back to the report that is behind this graphic. And again, I get a little bit more information. I can see that travel cost is off between actual and budget. I can see we've got an offset here in payroll, G&A, some of the other ones. But my negative variance right now is being driven by travel cost. Now, this looks and feels just like an Excel spreadsheet. And our report builder, our studio where we can build reports, is based on Excel, but it's used inside Prophix. And what's nice about it is you'll notice you see no formulas here. So the formulas for variance and various percentage are actually stored inside the central database. And this allows a lot of benefit. So when we distribute a report, or when you're looking at a report, you can't accidentally delete the formula that used to be there. You can't, add a row you can add rows, but when you add a row, it's not going to wipe out the references that you have. So all of these calculations are done in a central database. What's nice about that is that turns a report into just a window into your data. So let's say, we have an update. We automate the update for every evening. So the next morning I come in, all these variances are automatically calculated because they're part of the database. So you don't have to go through and worry about formulas. When you run a report, you are seeing a window into the newest, latest, greatest data. Now over here you'll see a comment, and if I mouse over, we can see that my manager Alfred has already made a comment on the travel cost. Why is it so high? Now what's nice, again, these comments are stored centrally, and I'll show you how that works a little bit later. But what it means is any place that you're pulling up the actuals for travel costs for marketing, you're going to see that comment, and it's going to follow through the data wherever you go. Now I can also, once I do my variance analysis, I can answer them via comments as well, and that answer will be stored there as we follow up. Now, we know it's marketing, we know it's travel cost, we remember from looking earlier that it was product marketing, but again, we're not getting the details in a way that clear and concise for us. I can actually go another level back, and this will bring me into the ad hoc part of Prophix, okay? This is where I interact directly with the database. This is where I can slice and dice. This is, a huge pivot table on steroids that is connected to our database. And as normal, we have different characteristics of the data. We call them dimensions. So across the top, we have actuals, our budget, and the variance that we talked about. On the left here, we have summary level accounts. I know they're summary level because of the plus sign there. Underneath would be the natural level accounts, or the leaf level, or, the budget level accounts. Everybody calls them something differently. Then other characteristics, other dimensions, we've got our organization. So I can select between the different departments for marketing. We've got our months. We've got our exchange rate. For this case, we're only talking in local currency. And we also have what's called a characteristic called time perspective. What this is your month to date, week to date, year to date, or your trailing 12-month average. Any way that you want to aggregate your data on time is collected here in time perspective. So we can show the month, quarter to date, year to date, however you want to see your data. Now, again, this is just mimicking the data we saw on the report. And So very quickly, with a quick drag and drop, I can change us from a comparative report, I can change us over to a trend. So now I'm seeing the data in a trend, and I can see, which accounts are problematic, which ones we have consistent problems with. I can now drill down, because we're talking about January travel cost. I can drill down on travel cost, and I can see lodging, airfare, and those are the two that are affecting us the most in January, but I can definitely see that airfare has the lion's share at this point. Now, this is normally, from a Prophix standpoint, this is normally as far down as we go. This is the lowest level of detail that we have loaded into Prophix. So we tend to load at the trial balance level. Okay, so we're taking a summary level from your ERP, and we're loading that trial balance level into Prophix so we can do our analysis, so we can look at things without recreating your ERP system. But what's nice with those, good ODBC or API connections, I can actually create a small query, and I can drill back into the ERP system with that query, and I can find, data from there. Let's bring this down a little lower, so we're just looking at airfare, product marketing. Now I'll drill across, and there we go. I was up one level too high. My apologies. So Prophix creates this little query, and it sends it over to your ERP system. So it's generated by Prophix based on your security and what you're allowed to see inside. So there's no danger of somebody going over and monkeying around in other areas of your ERP. You're only allowed to read the data that you're allowed to see in Prophix. And what's nice is we've now gone over, and now we've got the transactions that made up that $23,000. And we can see that there's a big hitter of $15,000. Now, if you scan your invoices for your AP function, or you have a document management system, or there is some access to a link to that documentation, we can actually take a look at the invoice that created that transaction. And we can see there was a conference for 6 people, and the cost involved that made that $15K. So think about it real quick. We're talking visual reporting. We're talking a dashboard. And just from seeing a variance on a dashboard, you can drill down, you can get better data, look at it as you need to, and even go over and take a look at the transactional data that made up the entries that came into Prophix. When we adopted the drill across to our ERP system, it saved me a bunch of time, because now, I've got this invoice that shows me that, hey, you guys took, a conference in January that wasn't budgeted for. So now I can call up product marketing, and I can say, hey guys, you went to this conference in January. It wasn't on the budget. What do we need to do? Do we need to budget for it in the future? And in this case, we're going to say yes. And I'm going to show you down the road how we can go in and budget very quickly and easily for new data. So that right there is, visual reporting. This is how we can consume data on a quickly updated daily basis. Okay. The next thing is our month-end reporting. Okay. So this is something that needs to happen every month, with regularity. And we have a way of dealing with that, and it is called a report binder. Okay. So inside this binder, you are going to store everything that you wanted to be distributed at your month end. And this can be anything from a cover sheet. You'll notice my cover sheet is a Word doc. It can be a PDF. It can be an Excel file. Totally up to you on how you want it to look and how you want it to feel. So you can have a very nice glossy, cover page. We can also have a narrative put in there, again a Word doc. We have an Excel add-in that lets us interact with the Office environment, the Microsoft Office environment. So if you wanted, you could actually feed data from Prophix to an Excel spreadsheet, have it pick out, oh, we increased revenue by 3% this month, and have that created in the Excel spreadsheet. And in your Word document, if you have a repetitive narrative, you could say this month, and it would pull in the current month that you're reporting on. Revenue increased by, and it would give you the amount and the percentage. So you can have that actually feed from Prophix all the way into your narrative in a Word documentation. You put that back in this report binder, and you're done with your narrative right there. Then we have the different reports from within Prophix that we create, and it's generated here and distributed. Now what's cool about this is you start the process. For me, I would get the okay from my manager, and he would say, Brian, everything looks good, run the reports. So I would start a process that would run this report binder and start distributing the reports to everybody within the company. Now, based on security, I mentioned it briefly earlier on the report, but your security determines what you can see inside of Prophix. So you can restrict that by role, you can restrict it by location, you can restrict it individually. For me, it was restricted by location. So when the report binder here started, it would say the first person was in Australia. So it would shrink my report down to only be what was important in Australia. So anything that had a 0 on the row, it would automatically suppress that row. So my cost center in Australia would get a report on what they needed to look at. Europe would get a report that was slightly bigger because we had some manufacturing centers in Europe. So the report would expand out for the people there. And the folks in finance or at corporate would get the full report with everything on it. So very dynamically, the reports would expand and contract based on what you wanted them to see. Now, the other side of that, and this is a little aside here, same for writing data. So again, with 26 legal entities, I was the only one who was allowed to write data. So only one allowed to write actual data. So when actuals came in, I had a process and I would load the actuals. Nobody else could touch actuals. So the actuals never changed. So real nice. If you think of a budget or a forecast, you let people write into that budget or forecast, your budget managers, whoever needs to provide data, that when you're done, say you're done with your budget, you remove that write access and you change the budget to complete. So now your budget is a line in the sand that nobody can change throughout the year. You'd use your forecast to explain any, meaningful or material variances to your budget. So again, security, is excellent for, controlling who sees what data and controlling the automated process. Now, the other side of the automation of this is, how do we update these every month? Well, it's real easy. I just go into one place in Prophix. I update from January to February 2018, and next thing you know, my actuals are going to start pulling from February instead of January. My comparison year, my prior year comparison actuals is going to now go from January 2017 to February 2017. The month and the budget is going to move forward automatically. If we flip from budget to forecast, say on the quarter, it would do that automatically. So the really cool part here that I don't know if I can emphasize enough is once you write these reports, due to security and the ability of Prophix to be dynamic, it's nothing but a rinse and repeat month after month. 4.5 years, I had to touch my P&L reports once, and that was because of a major accounting change where we moved some items from below the line to above the line. So it was impacting our operating, expenses. That's the only time I had to touch those budgets in 4.5 years. Or budgets, excuse me, the reports for 4.5 years. So again, if you think of the time to do reports in Excel or Crystal or in any of these other areas, it's automated, it's repetitive, and it's transparent so you can see what's going on. Again, huge time saver. I don't know if I can emphasize that anymore. So the reports, like I said, lot of time saving there. And real quick, hold up. Here's one I generated for this. You can see the cover page. Sand, shows detail, I guess. Here's the narrative, that can be updated. And then we start right into the Prophix generated reports. These have spark charts on it. You can use conditional formatting, highlighting. I've seen some really elegant reports created, and everything can be shown right here, right in Prophix. Okay, the last piece I want to talk about, which is another form of reporting, is talking about budgeting and forecasting. Okay, so in order to talk about that, we need to talk about workflow. Workflow is what we use to automate processes inside Prophix. So if you've got something repetitive, put it in a workflow, takes the human element out of things. I even had a workflow and a reminder that third week of January every year, it would tell me I needed to make sure that any accounting changes were captured in Prophix. So if there was a accounting change, usually above OpEx, I wanted to make sure that was captured. That way when I loaded my data in February, it was going to the right places. So if you think about all the pieces of a budget, creating that work template, that budget report, distributing it to who needs to see it, approval, all of that is captured in workflow. So Prophix now handles that. Once you're done with that report, Prophix distributes it to the people you tell it to. They get a notification saying, hey, it's time for you to fill out your operating expenses for the budget. They go in, they fill it out, they submit it back to Prophix. Prophix then tells you, as the approver, that you need to accept or reject this data. You can send a message back, communicate, go through the whole loop. Hey, marketing, we talked about expenses only being increased by 3% per corporate mandate 123. Your average increase is 4%. Please fix and resubmit. Boom, done. Then when everything comes in, it gets swept into the finance model, and it'll automatically give you an impact report of some kind, whether it's, the famous bridge reports, or if you just need to see pro forma financials. It will automatically create those and distribute it to them whenever that new information is in. So on your dashboard, my tasks is each individual's piece of a workflow. So when we set up a workflow, it looks like this. And go over, these are the different steps. I'm going to go over and look at it in a little bit more friendly fashion. Here's the workflow for our budget. Each one of these steps, green means it's done, blue it hasn't started yet. If it starts getting late, they turn yellow or red, and then it'll do another process of sending out emails. So you can set up your budget process very quickly, very easily, and visually keep track of it. Now, whoever you assign, it shows up here in my tasks. So we know we have to do OpEx, so I click on it, and my operating expense template shows up. The white is data that comes from another model. So like in this case, it comes from my personnel model, and it feeds data across. Yellow is where we have data that we can actually interact with directly on the report, and gray is, just a summary. So real quick, if you remember, I think lodging was an extra 10K. Let me just update this very quickly. So notice we're at 75,000, and as I refresh the input template, boom, we're at 85. Just that quickly we can update data. Now, I'm not going to remember why I increased that by 10K next year. Guarantee you I will forget why I made this one-off change. Okay? This brings us back to that comment I showed you that follows through into the central database. So not only can I add a comment here that says, hey, I increased 10K for this January conference, it has another value. One, I can attach substantive and supportive evidence right here inside Prophix and have it stored in the central database as well. Best example of that, excuse me. Best example I can give of that is post-closing journal entries. So I've finished my month-end report. Something material was discovered in accounting, so they'd send me over the post-closing journal entry. Instead of redoing all the reports, I would just go in and make the changes, to the actuals, and I would attach the post-closing journal entry right here. That way, if a manager went in and said, well, hey, why did my numbers change? The supportive data is there right away. And again, he could mouse over and see that there was an attachment, and, everybody would know that there was a post-closing journal entry. Saved me a lot of time. It was really great. Okay, now when we're creating budgets, when we're bringing budgets in, building from prior years, we need to manipulate the data sometimes. And I want to show you how we can integrate or work with the data, at a higher level. Notice our forecast here, September forecast, which is the last one we had from last year, thinks we're going to end the year at 99,000, okay? I believe that number, so I'm going to increase 2018 lodging to 100,000. Notice Prophix stops me right away because I'm entering data at a year level, and there are 12 months in that year. So it wants to know, Brian, how do you want to spread that data? Okay. Anytime you enter at a high level, it's going to ask you how you want to spread the data below it. Makes entering data and global changes very quick and very easy to do. Now, I could spread evenly. I've only ever used that with a new account, just so it shows up on the reports. Normally we spread based on existing data. That captures the seasonality down here and just proportionally applies the changes across the months. Now, I'm going to give you a quick side note here that has nothing to do with budgeting or reporting. The spreading data is so powerful, it can do a lot of things. Two examples of that would be what-if scenarios. So say you're done with your budget and you want to see the impact of something on it. So say this new law goes in effect and we're going to rebuild all the bridges in the US of A. And that has an impact on you because you provide steel. So we can very quickly take our existing budget, put it over to a new version, and increase our revenue and expenses accordingly based on, percentages up or down, dollar values up or down, interpolation of missing data, based on member property values or data somewhere else in the system. So we can do what-if scenarios very quickly. For an example, if I were moving a production line from Western Washington to Oklahoma City, I would do a what-if scenario to show what those budgeted numbers and actuals might look like for the rest of the year. The other place is with allocations. Everybody allocates to one degree or another, okay? So if I can allocate based on data and other dimensions, it makes choosing different activities very easy. So, I could spread IT based on headcount because everybody's got a laptop, or I could spread rent based on square footage of different buildings because I've got that stored in Prophix. So, it makes allocations between, the ability to do it and the workflow. They're repeatable, transparent, and traceable. So awesome for allocations. In this case, I'm going to spread based on existing data. Sorry for the segue there. I just wanted to give you a full view of what Prophix can do and how powerful it is. And you can see everything has proportionally increased up to that point. So again, I can go into personnel planning and I can go into that model. I can fine tune it and then bring the data over into my finance model to see what's going on there. I used to bring data in from my production model. So I would have my production model feed a model that was nothing but my manufacturing expenses, and then I would pull that data in for forecasting. So as you're going through the budget process, it's used in so many ways throughout Prophix. Very flexible, very high level, and it allows you to do a lot. I'm going to show you one other report real quick, and this one is revenue planning. The reason I want to show it is I always get asked the question about, Brian, can I use this number? You know, or we generate this number for forecasting, you know, this expense? And the answer is yes. You can have any statistical account you want. So right here is average sales price used in manufacturing for figuring out, you know, what our projected revenue would be based off of a production plan. So we've got our average sales price. That could be calculated based on last year's actuals or the last 5 years' actuals. We can take that average and use it for our average sales price. Sometimes people will pull an average sales price from an external system or an external source. You can pull that in and use it. Any KPI, any benchmark, anything that you use as a standard can be either calculated inside Prophix or brought into Prophix for figuring out whatever it is you need to model. I used to bring in third-party stats data for our market share. You know, small company for our industry, we had a market share reporting. So I would bring that in and I would use the market share data, and I built a report that would compare that to our actual revenue by state or our actual orders by state. And so if market share dropped in a state, I could compare that to our orders and our revenue, and we could start asking questions to see what was going on. So again, very powerful, these standards or KPIs, whatever you want to call them, very powerful to bring in. So here we are back at our demo. It is now your time for any questions, anything you have. Please type them into the GoToMeeting questions section on the panel there, and either me or the Turnkey folks would love to answer them. Now, one of the things while folks are thinking, Brad, everyone feel free to chime in at any point. One of the things I want to point out also on Prophix is you have the ability of choice of implementation. So if, let's say, you have your own server inside your firewall and you have to implement on a server on your own premises, we can do that. We can implement on a cloud of your choosing, either your own cloud or, you know, whatever cloud you rent out to have your programs put on. Or third choice, we can actually implement as software as a solution, which puts it on, you know, the Prophix cloud. So you have all these choices on implementation, and the software is identical. It's the same code base, looks the same. You know, sometimes you're required to do something. You know, I've had folks who were on an on-prem version and they had to go to cloud due to a corporate mandate, and nobody actually noticed the difference other than, you know, a login name, because the software was identical. So any questions out there, feel free. Brad, turning it over to you.
Hey, thank you, Brian. Appreciate it. We don't have any questions at this time, but anybody who does have questions after this, we'll provide the contact info for you. You will also get an email from me tomorrow with some additional information as well. So that concludes our webinar for today. Just want to say thanks again to everybody for joining, and Brian, thank you for your presentation and for conducting this webinar with us.
You bet. And Brad, sorry to interrupt, we did get a question come across.
Oh, excellent. Thank you for pointing that out. Can you read that there, Brian, or do you want me to go ahead and
Absolutely. I work in the ag business. Sales and majority of our large expenses are driven by production. Can we budget based on forecasted sales-based formulas from current inventory? Yes. So I have a customer who does flowers. I've never seen so many acres of flowers in my life. And, you know, so they provide flowers to grocery stores and florists, et cetera, similar to an ag business, I would assume. And they absolutely run off their forecasted sales and the formulas that they have for that. You know, on top of that, there's the salesman feedback and updates along that. I'd like to answer the question a little bit further from my perspective. You know, because my flex budget I mentioned briefly, that was based on our production model. So the production model would get changed second week of every month, and we would get a new production model looking forward into for the rest of the year. And I would take those production numbers and I would put it into what we called our flex budget model, okay, which we used for forecasting. Specifically for us, it was manufacturing spend, but for you, you could forecast your sales bases or, you know, whatever constraints you have on your sales model. And this can be by pound, ton, acre, whatever you need. So as that production model changed and it fed in, the variable expenses inside that flex model would move up and down with the change in the production model. And then we would use that to base our reports on. So yes, you can get as complicated as you need to model whatever you need to inside of Prophix, you know, based on, you know, even presumed production. I'm not sure how much your actual production changes based on weather or other items, but you know, all of that can be fed in. It's a lot of fun to build, actually. Of course, I'm a numbers guy. Did that answer your question? Excellent. You are welcome. Any other questions, folks? This is the most fun for me. I love answering the questions. So,
yeah, we'll give a little bit of time for people to ask in case they're coming up with some.
And, you know, thinking on what you just said there, I have been asked in the past different measurements of data. I actually got asked to come up with a dashboard for daily attendance and admission prices. So it actually turned out we actually broke it down into a separate model that was measuring the admissions coming in on an hourly basis. So we actually had it update this model hourly. So again, we can get as detailed as you want. Or another customer, we had to forecast expenses out 20 years because they were on an endowment. So we would do a high-level forecast going forward 20 years, you know, especially with whatever CapEx they thought they would need. So,
wow.
Yeah, a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's impressive. Okay, well, I think that's it for the questions. But if anybody does have more, you know how to contact us. You can either reach out to Brian Trethaway, or please feel free to reach out to me. Like I said, I will be sending an email tomorrow, so you'll have some more information about Turnkey and Prophix, as well as a way to reach out to us if you do want to learn more. So until next time, thank you again, Brian, for conducting this with us. Let us know if you have any questions, and I hope everybody has a great afternoon.
My pleasure. Thank you, everybody.